Open Championships, Greg, a lot of the storyline is the golf course. And this time we go to Royal Troon. That is where we were in 2016. You probably remember it from the Henrik Stenson, Phil Mickelson duel, where they were lapping the field over everyone. Signature holes. Let's go with the postage stamp. Number 8, which is a very, very tiny green and coffin bunkers. 11 will play as probably the most difficult hole potentially of the entire year. But let's start talking about what Royal Troon is, what types of players might be able to find success here, and then we'll get into the field, Greg.
Okay, so first, what Royal Troon is? It's a very interesting test of golf that is kind of divided, and I think it's pretty clear in your in the graphic that you have up on the screen here, Rick, that the front 9, specifically the first 6 holes, are very gettable. The first 3 holes are par 4s that are under 400 yards. You didn't see a whole lot of this in 2016, but you may this year, where players actually are driving the fronts of greens, driving it right up near the green in some cases. I think that's a very real possibility this year. And you have to take advantage of the first 6 holes. So after those par 4s, you have two of the 3 par 5s on the golf course, and number 4 and number 6 also on the front 9. That being said, those par 5s are no picnic. They are both over 600 yards. Well, one's 599, one's 623 this year. So they are long par 5s, but they're certainly still scoring opportunities. But then things kind of take a turn. You mentioned the difficulty at number 11.
Yeah.
And you look at this back 9. I mean, just breaking down the scorecard. I mean, on the front 9, you have 5 par 4s. They're all under 440 yards. And number 9 is 440 yards. And so all the previous par 4s are much shorter than that. Well, on the back 9, you have 6 par 4s. They're all over 450 yards. 3 of them are over 470. So it's a really what you're going to see probably on Thursday. And if you're not waking up to watch the first tee shot, there's a very good chance you turn on the TV and you see somebody 5 under par through 8 holes, 6 under through 8. And then all of a sudden their name plummets off the leaderboard because the golf course changes dramatically as you get up into the sand dunes. And as you start turning back toward the clubhouse, the test of this golf course gets significantly more difficult. So I think that's a very interesting thing to watch throughout this tournament.
So you've got the ability to get some strokes to par early and then hold on. This is the first time I've done something like this for the correlation model, Greg. So we do have data. There was ShotLink at the 2016 Open Championship. So we do have a little bit of data. What I also did for the first time is I took some other, I was a little bit cautious with this, but I took some other Open Championship Rota setups. I think Royal Troon has its unique aspects to it, obviously, but I did take some other Rota style golf courses to generate almost like a projected correlation model over the normal weeks where we have 10, 12, 15 years worth of data, and I don't have to put my fingerprints on anything at all. And what the model really likes in most majors, this is not unusual, is a very solid ball striking, very good tee to green play. But you always see at Open Championships, you always see around the green play come into it a little bit more. And I think that is because not only of link style golf, not only where you have golf holes with a lot of runoff, but those pot bunkers that protect a lot of the greens and fairways. They really do ask for a lot of creativity, a lot of skill. So anytime you model on Open Championship stuff, around the green play seems to get a fairly significant boost.
Yes, and the other aspect specifically here at Troon, which is different than every course in the Open Rota, specifically St. Andrews, but the greens here are not very large.
Yes,
they may be on the smaller side. And when you're dealing with wind, you're dealing with small greens, you're dealing with penal rough, what happens is a lot of greens are missed. So because you're missing a lot of greens, there's a lot of opportunity to gain or lose strokes around the greens.
Yeah.
The caution I have with around the green play in an Open specifically, very different than a US Open per se, is it's a different style of short game in many cases, right? The pop bunkers, a great bunker player may not be a great bunker player in an Open championship.
For sure.
You know, when you're chipping from these fairways, you may use a wedge, but you may not. You may be putting off the green a lot. You may be using a more flat face club. You may be using a hybrid or a 5-wood. There are so many different options in the around the green play. It becomes, and I'm not in any way saying it's not important. I just think it becomes a little more difficult to handicap when
Agreed.
you're typically looking at traditional short games.
Yeah.
So,
they're all very fair to, I mean, to even put just a recent example in that column. I mean, Victor Hovland gained like 4 strokes around the green at St. Andrews, and it was because he pulled putter every single time he missed green.
right, which is it's an option.
Right.
And so I think that it allows for some variance in the type of player. I also think the tee to green stuff leads to some variance in the type of player. You know, oftentimes in Open championships, you're rewarded for putting the ball in the fairway. Driving accuracy has a tendency of becoming more important than driving distance. That's different at St. Andrews, but it could very well be a factor here, like it was a factor last year at Royal Liverpool.
Right.
So, you know, there are some difficult things to figure out. I think this is one of the most difficult tournaments year over year, regardless of the venue, to handicap and predict. I don't think at this point weather is going to be a huge factor where you're going to have a massive swing in the draw. There may be a slight advantage one way or the other, but I don't think you're going to see a huge advantage based on what I've seen today on Monday. But weather can absolutely play a role. So these things complicate the handicapping procedure. And what I like to do when you're dealing with complicated procedures like this is 2 things. Who's playing well now? That's a really important aspect. And also who has some pedigree in Open championships on links golf. I think that is a very important aspect because some guys just don't know how to play it. They haven't figured that out yet. Whereas other guys seem to excel in this kind of environment.